USA in economics. I taught at the National Academy, for example, in Missouri. I resigned in 2001 after realizing that it's simply not possible. I obviously had access to the Planning Commission Secretary, the Finance Secretaries, and everybody in Prime Minister office, people like Ashok Saikia who are unfortunately passed away. But the reality is that with all the access that you get in the IS, you still can do absolutely nothing. And the answer is and why can't you do it? Because the politicians don't allow it. So when it was very clear that I'm wasting my time, I mean, इतना time नहीं होता है कि बस अपना time लगे रहो तो भिखारियों की तरह भी आप हमारा कर दो, हम खुद बन जाते हैं politician. I said this is all end of it. I'm going to lead the country and we will all lead the country together because it is not possible to keep begging these guys for you. Okay, हमारा करो, हम भिखारी हैं क्या? हम तो भी चाहते reform. Sorry, I should speak in English.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay. So 15 years since then, not resigned in 2001. I started some work before that. India Policy Institute, which is hosting it, had started based on my work. Then I started. I became a national executive member of the Swatantra Bharat Party, which was the successor literacy of the Swatantra Party. That didn't really go very far. Started the Freedom Team of India, which is basically the core team that is organizing this event and many other events which are happening across India. Wrote a book, Breaking Free of Nehru. I'll just show you the picture. And organized a reform summit recently for 4 days, where we organized federation of all reform organizations in India. All organizations that want to reform should join. 15 years of reform work, but actually it's all about technical work. I'm doing this so-called political thing. I'm not a born politician. I don't think I can give any speech of any value to anybody like Vajpayee. But I do think that we have all of us the responsibility and challenge to do it politically, and because otherwise no one listens to us. हम लोग middle class aspirational हैं. We are the aspirational guys that Guchanji had mentioned, but nobody cares about us because we don't vote and we have no voice. And this is the time for us to get a voice. Let us do it properly and we'll get it done. Now, this is the book title that I mentioned, Breaking Free of Nehru, and you can read very briefly. It must be read by every Indian. Gulchan Ji had made a recommendation it should be read by every Indian. I don't know if every Indian has read it yet, but it is worth trying. Okay. Though what I'm going to talk is a distillation of about 50 years of experience in the public service. So I was in the IS for 18 years, then I went and joined, and I had no job. First job, had it been private sector, I would have taken that. I had been something else, I would have taken that. Had been truck driver, I would have taken that. First job was a research officer in a government organization, so I took it. And so I became a bureaucrat again. So I'm still a bureaucrat. Currently I work in the Australian Victorian government as a policy advisor in economics and finance policy area of the Treasury and Finance Department. So basically my job is regulatory and policy frameworks. In fact, it turns out very nicely and coincidentally that I have become basically the front edge person on that field across the world. So my work is now used as a basis for many things in that area. So it's a good thing because I was instead of simply sitting and reading books in PhD, you actually do it yourself and you really realize the value of these frameworks, and I'll talk about them. So I'm going to talk about frameworks only. Frameworks are the things which underpin. They are the policy about policy, and I'll come to that. They are meta policies. What kind of policies should we have? That itself is a policy. That's a policy question. So I've broken my talk into two parts, and now there will be single part. So one was pre-tea and one was after tea, but now I'll do one part. And my plan is to stop it at basically about 12 o'clock. So I have roughly 40 minutes, and that should be fine. I'll get through most of the slides. Other slides which I don't get through, please read them on the internet. That is only the beginning. Somebody said, I actually, as usual, I sought comments from all over the country. Anybody who has views, please suggest. A lot of views came in. One view was that there's some duplication. And I said, look, the problem in India, we don't think about these things, so there is a need for some duplication. So you'll find some important words, incentive. Let me just repeat it. I'll repeat it about 40 times, so just remember that word. And there'll be duplication of that word. We must focus on that. So basically what is going to happen, the slides on the internet, I'll start off. You have any questions you ask, please note them carefully because they're very important, and we'll actually drill down into the details after this. I'll not go into this structure, it's all up there, and I'll go straight to the talk. Theory of governance. What exactly is the theory of governance? What is a policy about policy? What is a policy about governance? Is this creating trouble? Mobile thing is creating trouble. So what is a policy about policy? We need a framework and a system under which we can operate. How can an education policy be framed? It is not a separate exercise. Let me assure you that is not the way to look at education policy. As a separate standalone piece, divested from or separate from the rest of the policy frameworks. All policies must come from the same root analysis. And that root analysis is missing in India completely.
And I'm sure you know that. So we are talking about that framework. Without good frameworks, please understand that bad policy is inevitable. You cannot avoid it. So we are going to ask two questions. What should a government do and how should it do it? Policy that only focuses on the first part, which is the general tendency in India. हम एक policy बनाते हैं reform के लिए. Sorry, we make a policy on reform, and we, say Narega. We have this Narega policy. But sorry, but what exactly? How is it going to work? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about the incentive structures of the bureaucracy and others? Did you do the root analysis? No, you did not. So we should always look at policy as a two-sided issue. In fact, these two questions transform themselves into 10 questions, and I'll come to those 10 questions. And if you do those 10 questions properly, you will get very good policy as a result. Now let us look at this very simply. I have this public choice theory. The entire James Buchanan, the Nobel Prize winner, and others, and so many, Gordon Tullock and many others. These guys were wonderful thinkers. They have come out with this theory of public choice, collective action, etc. Manchar, Olson, and so on. Now they said, I won't go into details, but I made two diagrams which completely condense the theory. You can see it very clearly in the second diagram. So now we have a very simple case. I want to pick up a pen. Is there any intermediary between me and my pen? No. No problem. I have a goal, I pick up a pen. Finished. What about making a road? फिर तो एक black box आ गया ना बीच में. Sorry. In the middle there's a black box. I have a tendency to lapse in India. I don't do this in Australia. I showed you. Nobody understands Hindi there, so I talk in English, pure English. So, but somehow I managed to slip in it. But bureaucrat comes in the middle. Bureaucrat / politician, whatever, agent. I should have written agent. Agent is actually either bureaucrat or politician, mostly for bureaucrat at the grassroots level. So the bureaucrat takes our request. We requested for a pen, so we have to request, please give me a pen. He goes for a cup of tea. So bureaucrat goes for a cup of tea. So this is the way the word he hits a sixer. Our request is gone. He is achieving his goals on our money. That is the difference between public choice. This is public choice theory at a glance. This slide is the entire theory, sum and essence of public choice theory, which we do not take into account in India. Let's do that is what I say. Now in the sequencing of this talk, I'll discuss how do we do this. So I'll focus on the bureaucrat first. He's the missing link in India's analysis. There's a fair bit of work on the what. Governance reform, liberalization, economic policy reforms. We've done a fair bit of work in India. So that's some utility privatization or at least regulation. There's a lot of failures, let me assure you, and they are guaranteed. You cannot achieve reform in the economic policy space without the underlying governance infrastructure. If your governance remains the same, please be assured you will get bad results with economic policy reforms. So you need both. A word about Arthashastra. I mentioned in my introductory comments about the importance of looking backwards. And Balbir Sihag, who is Professor Balbir Sihag, is writing a book on this, and he's saying, and I fully agree with him, that Arthashastra is unparalleled in the history of the world as basically the first major piece of economics ever written. And it is way ahead of Adam Smith. I've read both. Well, to the extent one can, both are very fat books. But I've got the essence of both. And I can assure you that Arthashastra has considered incentives and he's so deep in his analysis that it is very, very difficult to find any of that depth in Adam Smith. So we are now looking at rediscovering what is in India and what drove India in the past. So Arthashastra, in my view, the policies of Arthashastra, they underpinned India's performance for the last 2000 years, where we were out of the last 2000 years. The second one is, the orange one is India. The top one is China. But basically you see that we were the biggest slice of the world in terms of, this is a very crude graph, it's very not to scale kind of thing, but don't worry, it's broadly reflective of what I'm saying. So for 2000th century, this is Angus Madison's work, so it's not my work, it's one of the classics in economic history. So we were the world's richest or second richest for 18 out of the past 20 centuries. 18. Now that's not a mean achievement. And I'm talking per capita, I'm not talking here about total. That is obviously, India was obviously a large country. Per capita wise, we were richer. We were more advanced, our technology was better. And I'll leave aside the last 200 years with British rule and, then the last 65 years, which is a total disaster, in my view. We wasted it. But what we need to do at the moment is consider, because Arthashastra and public choice theory are actually mirrors of each other. There's so much in public choice theory that James Buchanan said, which is merely a restatement of Arthashastra. He never knew Arthashastra. I'm also discovering it only now because of Professor Sihag. But the net result is we have, and many of the historians and others who write about Arthashastra, including the book that Gurcharan has edited, that's a wonderful book, that's written by a historian, and they missed the point completely. I've read the book thoroughly, and they missed the real issues about incentive analysis that Arthashastra has, which Balbir Sihag has picked out. So we need to read between the lines, because remember, this is not a textbook, this is actually a guidance to a prince. The prince was supposed to take a lesson for at least 20 years before he became king. There is a governance school. Arthashastra is the material for a governance school for the king, how he can become a good king. And the king, in that process, he must have taught the king all the incentive theories that we will talk about today. But when you read the Sanskrit slokas, you really can't see the incentive theory underpinning it. But you cannot get that outcome without the analysis. So the analysis must have been there. It is implicit in Arthashastra. That is missing from the most of the authors who have analyzed Arthashastra. They have not got to that point. And I will come mostly to that point. So what did Chanakya want? He wanted a strong minimal state. That is very clear. And that's exactly what Gurcharan has talked about. Strong minimal state should be strong. We should have sufficient power to defend ourselves, attack enemies if required. But it should be also very minimal so that people can produce and be free. I'll come to that in a second. We should have control over incentives of the bureaucracy. He was very conscious of the public choice theory concept of the middleman, the agency theory issue. He's got to get the job done. The king cannot do it on his own. He has to get the job done by advisors, the ministers, the bureaucrats. He has a complete theory of how you deal with them, how you punish them, how you reward them. He's a master, and we are complete ignorance in India. We are just following the most hopeless model. Sorry about this, I get really angry with India's model. So, the two axes, if you note here, are liberty and incentives. What are the two axes? Market-based economy, liberty, let the people produce. Do not go around producing things that they can produce. Second, incentives. Make sure that your bureaucrats are under control. Do not allow them reckless, opportunities to make money. One man who is corrupt is killed, finished, over, dead and gone. One man, finished, over. No possibility of second opportunity. And remember, incentives do not mean only rewards. It means punishment. I'm referring to that. Somebody mentioned in the content comments that you're talking about rewards only. No, sir. It is both ways. It is both ways. Incentives are both ways. So, liberty, as I mentioned here, is an end in itself. If you go back to theories, and I'm writing a book on that called Discovery of Freedom. It's already about 600 pages. I'll go I'll take another 2 years while I get finished. But it's an end in itself. Through liberty, we become what we can. We need the opportunity, we need the challenge. I've done an experiment, I had the liberty. I'm glad that Chaturvedi allowed me to take an experiment in this great institute, and I found that my experiment has failed. To the extent that everybody who committed didn't come. So I've learned. I was free, I learned, I will change, modify. This is the fundamental requirement of liberty, that you try and you learn. If you are given some guidance and control from your dictator or boss, that means you cannot experiment, you will never learn. So first thing is, liberty is an end in itself on many grounds, moral grounds, the one that we're talking about. Without liberty, you cannot say whether you actually did it or it was done by God. So that, if you did something wrong, was it you or was it God? Was it society? Today there's a tendency to say society has done this, made you like this. No, you ultimately did it yourself. Let us make sure accountability is squarely put on the person who's doing it. Laozi was the great thinker as well in Chanakya's time, pretty much. He says, win the world by doing nothing. The king must do nothing. Back to the same old point, minimal. How do I know it is so? Because the more prohibitions are there are, the poorer the people become. Now there's a very deep incentive analysis behind this. Please do not think that these kind of statements are coming out of magic. They are coming from a deep analysis which people are discovering today in economics, modern economics. This statement is very meaningful. The more prohibitions there are, the poorer the people become. That is pretty much what Chanakya says. Let's remember that. And he says the second part. He says, I love to be quiet, and the people are righteous by themselves. I do not interfere in their lives and they become righteous. I deal in no business. The king does not go around doing business. The king does not set up public sector undertaking for making shirts. In Assam, when I was there, they were public sector undertaking making kameez pajama. Sorry. That is the job of government or what? I don't understand. Ideally, no business. People grow rich by themselves. This is the fundamental rule of liberty. कहावत, जहां का राजा हो व्यापारी, वहां की प्रजा हो भिखारी, which is well known to India, but we forgot. Let us remember it again. So the government should not engage in business, free markets, free enterprise. This is a foundation principle of all societies which have succeeded. Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, England, America, everywhere. The government must not become a businessman. And Adam Smith, of course, says nicely as well. The natural effort of every individual to better his own condition, that is a natural effort. Is so powerful that it is alone and without any assistance not only capable of carrying on the society to wealth and prosperity, but of surmounting 100 impertinent obstructions. The government can put obstructions, you know that. The government puts obstructions in India, but still people hurdle. They pass over the hurdles and still they succeed. A natural effort. Everybody wants to achieve. Let them be free. This is the lesson that Chanakya, Arthashastra, Lao Tse had. We keep forgetting it. We have said, government will do this, government will do that. We know that. This government, I was in government, it's a mess. People arrogant like mad in the government. Fellows know nothing but they're arrogant. हमें हिसाब आता है. We know everything for the country. Stupid. You know nothing. You don't know anything because the people know everything. You are simply there to be the servant. That is the message I'm bringing. Any restriction on liberty, why does this? This is back to the same message. Any restriction on liberty reduces the number of things tried. Why is liberty so successful? Because it is the number of things tried and then failed that actually leads to success. Edison tried how many times? 1,000 times. You try, you will succeed once. The liberty means the freedom to try. Rule says North Korea, you only do this way. Whole country fails completely. So you must try. This is the fundamental point again about liberty. People create the ideas and wealth, not government. Government is simply a servant and uses these money and wealth that people create. We must never forget that whatever is the government has is not something that's created from magic. It's created from the hard work and sweat and tears of these people, including the ones who are working in slums and picking up bags and everything from the garbage. They are working and we are giving them orders. Does it make sense? No. So, ideas and innovation come from the people. The government should not be in any paternalistic state. It should not interfere. It should not become a food police. It should ensure that contracts are enforced. Social control is the other part which John Stuart Mill talked about. Society also controls people. Let us not forget that India has caste system and all those things. That is not government control. Even that is a barrier. But he said that you cannot fix it from the government. Let society have social reformers. So what should the government do? The government must enable liberty. Social reform it should not do. It is not its job because that the social reformers must do. Then people will innovate. Then you will see the people coming out and they will innovate with new ideas and they'll push the frontier. This is the production possibility frontier and they'll push it out and you will find more and more progress. People will drive the whole economy. You don't know what they know. They know hundreds and thousands times better than you. The condition of their local circumstances that, as Hayek says, do not interfere in their lives. Let them decide the best that they can. That is the first incentive. I must rush because I've got so much to say in the slides, but the slides are up there. Chanakya understood not only liberty, he understood incentives. Now that is the fundamental thing that we have failed totally to understand. Now when I talk to you about a few examples, you'll say, this is so obvious, so why are we doing this? Are we fools? Of course we are, there's no doubt. We are also insane, remember? So don't forget that we have been fools and insane for 65 years. When the time comes, we will change. And I think the time is coming. What has happened now? Something silly. Right. So what did Chanakya do? He said we want the best talent in the government. Advisors must be really good, the ministers must be really good. We want high salaries for top officials. Very high salaries, and I'll come to that. But vigorous checks and balances, no corruption, complete audits, and even spying. He would spy on his own ministers to check what's going on. Sting operation ना, आजकल तो वो ये मोबाइल लेके घूमता है, उसके आदमी को भेज के जाओ सब, get all these things, photograph, take videos of all this corruption and give me one man who's corrupt, उसको kill कर देंगे. We'll just finish him. He won't be visible after some time. I'm not saying that's the process, but I'm saying that the method, the idea must be to make sure that one man who's corrupt is gone out. Then you will say, tell me which Indian will be corrupt after that. Tell me which man. Whose life is more important, or is it corruption more important? You will decide. One of the two. Okay, that is that's why I think we have to come to that point. Pick one: money or life. Okay. Then the other, we have opposite incentive in India. We have got the worst talent in the government because they join well, then they become the worst. I had the senior officers from Australia who come here and they tell me, we are so, we go to your IS officers and we don't understand what they're talking about. They are not listening to us. They don't understand. The quality of the talent at the top in India is almost like third rate, total third rate. They start very well, but the incentives in the government are like, knocker chakar, driver shiver, I'm a big man, lights, I had so many lights. By the time we reach that level at the top, they are totally defunct and irrelevant to anybody. The knocker has become the Raja. And that is exactly what we are doing. We are creating bad talent from good talent. We are taking good people in the beginning and making them into rubbish. We are not paying them well, we are not holding them to account. Ultimately, they are disappointed, they are disillusioned and are basically unable to perform. Singapore, we are talking about Singapore, let me briefly mention. Mobile phones. In Singapore, there was a simple process. They said nobody should have mobile phone in the car while driving. It's not good for people because they would hit others and kill others. Very good idea. So what they said, 6 months they advertised. No mobile phone from that date, say 1 April. On 1 April, they immediately caught. And they caught one lady. It was a very senior lady. They said the mobile phone, this my cousin was telling me, he said he lived in Singapore. He said, that lady basically said, no, I was just starting the call, I was not doing anything. I just think if he said, okay, give me your mobile phone. They checked, call was 9 minutes long. They can check on the phone. It's the phone tells you the call when it started. And she was put, what? 6 months behind bars. No more anybody in Singapore takes out a mobile phone while driving. Finished. They are following Chanakya. Chanakya is not talking rubbish. Everybody in the world does it properly. And they get the results. One strong action fixes mistakes. So don't forget incentives. Government failure, and this is where the policy makers come. Economics has become basically a service center for the government, for the socialist governments, because they say there's market failure, please interfere. So government should interfere, but sorry, what is the government? Government is a magician or what? Government is simply a servant. How can a servant do better than what you can do? Is it possible for a servant to do better, unless he's specially skilled, in which case you must control him and pay him and all that. There is a thing called government failure. Government failure is the fundamental mantra of public choice theory. We should understand this concept of government failure because that will drive our reforms. So our government has failed totally and comprehensively. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is very typical of the IS officers and so on, at the senior levels. Totally corrupted. They may not take money, but they, like, we are the kings here. We know, ye Bharat, this is, I talked to the sad case is that 94 batch officer, a topper of his batch or something, 94 or some batch, a very famous man. I thought he's a very good guy. So I said, look, I want him as a reformer. He's actually done PhDs, etc. abroad and now does something. I won't go too much, otherwise you know who he is. But, so I said, let me identify these young people. And he tells me first thing, Sanjeev, this is all good what you're saying, but no, this is India. India is different. I said, so Abhi guy comes in. You also got the thing. You're also useless, please stay on the corner, we will get some better people. India is not different. Let us be very clear, the same behavior, same people in Asia. Singapore, one day they were corrupt and throwing rubbish everywhere. Second day they were all honest and productive and doing the good thing. Same people. We have the same DNA. I hope you know that we have exactly the same DNA across the world. The skin color is because of vitamin D. Let's not mix the skin color and say Indians are different. Or our great culture, which is good, but our culture we have forgotten. Let me just mention that. So incentives, I will not go. This is all the theory of the thing. I think I should keep moving on. This is about institutions. Institutions are rules. Rules create incentives. Incentives arise from the institutions. You must create rules. Like corruption kiya mare. 2. 1 rule. 1 corruption kiya mare. 3 words. It's a rule. Corruption kiya pakad ke mare. Let's make it clear. But the point is, it should be always and invariably applied. You cannot have rules that do not apply invariably all the time. If the rule is not applying all the time, it is a failure. You are failure of system design. You should not make a rule. Rules should be made to be implemented. Once you do the proper rules, people respond. When you go to the airport, there is a rule. You will go through security, otherwise you will not enter the plane. You can't say, no, I don't like security. Then you can't. Then job, go home. Rule. Make rules. People pass through the rule filter, there is good result. There is no chaku, etc. in their pockets. That's fine. Gone. You are safe. That is how you make rules, institutions. Our rules are rubbish. A bunch of rubbish in every regard. There is not a single rule. Many rules have been made in the British times for colonial enforcement of power, and we are following them blindly. We have made the whole of India a colony. We are a colony of the IAS, IPS, IFS. India is a colony of these 3 fellows. These 3 are ruling India. Sorry, but we are not supposed to be a colony. We are an independent country, don't forget that. The response. When you create a rule, people respond. Remember, the response is not guaranteed, but what I'm saying is predictable. The response is predictable. All responses are predictable. When you make a rule that you must go through the filter on the airport, response is clear. People will go through there because they have to go there. So the response is clear. However, in some cases they may have some other conditions and they will say, no, I will not go through that, or I'm a VIP, I'm Vadra, I can't go through this thing. No, I don't like this. Please make a different rule, I will go straight. Then if he is powerful enough, he will make a separate rule for himself. But by and large, people will they will respond to rules. And we must not forget other things which I have just put on the down, but they are also, in a statistical sense, there will be other factors at play in response. So you have to work out statistically what will be the response of different people to different incentives. So I just mentioned the rubbish thing, mobile phone, but the same thing about rubbish. Same Indian, this young friend of mine, IS officer, Indians are different, sorry, but the same Indian, I go from here, I throw my rubbish, I throw my banana peel on the ground, I go to Singapore, I carefully find there is a bin, because I know there's a rule, $200 fine or something. Same Indian, different behavior. Rule changes, incentive changes. Institutions creates incentives, incentives create behavior. This is the fundamental flow. We have not bothered to even think about this. I was in the academy, I used to teach management, financial management. I never taught this, unfortunately, because I had not fully understood it and absorbed it. I would have liked to teach this kind of stuff. Nobody has ever taught me incentives. I did obviously that 2-year course in the academy. Nobody ever said about incentives. Economics also was rubbish training. I learned economics separately on my own. So we actually have a very poor system of training in the academy. And I think we really need to bring incentives into the story of governance. That is my fundamental message. So I said, I'll repeat the word 40 times, 100 times. Please remember the word. Tenure. You give I was telling your mother, to explain things, I always like to explain to my mother first. If my mother can understand, others can understand. I have converted my mother from a socialist to a liberal thinker. If I can do that, then you can also do for your mother. So I say, आपकी माई आती है. I'll not speak this in Hindi. This is a Hindi thing. So let us. आपकी माई आती है, आप उसको 35 साल आप उसको नौकरी देकर रखो, परमानेंट नौकरी, उसको निकाल नहीं सकते. आपको कोर्ट जाना पड़ेगा प्रूफ करने के लिए कि उसने काम नहीं किया, झाड़ू का कोना में साफ नहीं किया. 35 साल की नौकरी है, नहीं कुछ नहीं साफ किया, आपको फोटो लेनी है, विटनेस लेने हैं, विटनेस लाने पड़ेगा, 50 विटनेस, ताकि उसने उस कोने में साफ नहीं किया. Once you have done that, then you go to court and then you can remove your माई. ऐसी माई आपको दे दें तो आपको कैसी लगेगी? You tell. This is what we do to IAS, IPS. 35 साल नौकरी, काम करो ना करो, doesn't matter. झाड़ू में you have done your job properly, nothing. I get the same car, I get the same salary, I become promoted, I become secretary salary. हम secretary equivalent हो गए, same salary. What for? What have you done? What have you done for India? That is the question. When Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose left the job, he probably had this in mind. I say, this is not the way the country runs. It runs from people who actually demand results in the country. And what we have got is a bunch of people who are willing to cushily, my batchmates, I'm sorry to say, in fact, one of my batchmates is positively said is coming. I've got how many batchmates, additional secretary, all of them, right? They're all in Delhi. I have been requesting them. For 15 years I've been telling them the same message. No response. They have got conditioned. They are conditioned into this model. अभी उनको सबको निकालना है, okay? Corruption. Now, when the British came to India, because of our models, I was reading, they were so astonished. The Indians were so honest. This is documented by the British in the 1450s and 1500s. Well before the later period when they actually got corrupted by the British. Indians were extremely honest. Let us go back to that model, and that was based on Arthashastra. Model of reward and punishment, incentive based. Let me ask you a question. I make you a politician. So you have to spend 10 crores. Somebody was saying yesterday, in fact my batchmate was saying, I was sitting with him. He said, you कैसे करेंगे elections? 10 crores is quite big, a minimum to contest the parliamentary elections. 10 crores. He's telling me, he knows it is additional secretary. I also know it because I was also a central observer. I have conducted so many elections. We know that. So now the rule says you have to spend 45 lakhs maximum. People spend it. Where does the money come from? We know where it comes from. Don't we know that? But then we say, now that you have become a great representative, we will give you a salary of, I don't know how much lakhs, 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs salary, so whatever the salary they get. So that's your salary, guys. Now you're a businessman, you spend 10 crores, your net return is 5 lakhs. It doesn't make sense. This is the most stupid decision in your life. So why would you do this? Does it make sense? It doesn't. And what do we do? What do we do in response? We complain. We just change the incentive, change the structure. Australia pays the politicians based on the number of votes they get. They get $2 each. Accordingly, they don't have to, they can borrow money, etc. and spend, but they get a return immediately. So the election part is dealt with separately and salary is dealt with separately. Today we give them nothing, but we expect them to be honest. I can guarantee it's not even worth questioning. Chanakya would have laughed at the fools who think this is going to work. The fools of India. 65 years. We make the politicians spend 15 crores and then we say they'll work in a small salary and they'll be honest. And you know how much money an average politician deals with? Lakhs of crores. In terms of decisions taken, roads, infrastructure, he's signing on things which are lakhs of crores. He's got, his signature is worth lakhs of crores. His salary is worth 5 lakhs. He has spent 10 crores. What is he going to do? He'll take money. I've taken, I keep talking about Hitesh Saikia, but I can talk about so many ministers. The only goal in life when they talk to me, when I was first director of rural development, biggest department, and later secretary, is how to make money for me. I'm so sorry, you can't. But then I'm removed. First thing is they say, no, we don't need you. Fine. So what is the whole point? What are we doing? We're doing a joke. We are playing a joke on ourselves because we did not bother to read our Shastra. We didn't bother to understand incentives. We did not bother to take common sense actions. Let's do that. How did this happen? It's happened because I have an incentive to talk. I want to explain some message. So everything is incentive based. This is the fundamentals of psychology. So incentives drive human behavior. This must be the focus of analysis of any governance school that I'll talk about. Study incentives till the last dot and you will understand exactly how the system works, and that is one of the key questions to ask when you design policy. Have your incentives been aligned so that the bureaucrats' incentives, जो 6 और मार रहा है, those incentives are exactly equal to yours. The bureaucrats' incentives and your incentives align, your policy will work. If it doesn't align, it will never work. Another example quickly, if I give you 100 rupees and 200 rupees, what do you take? It's always guaranteed you take 200 rupees. So, that's the same thing. You are doing, it's a predictable. The other thing about incentives are predictable like laws of nature. They are law of gravity. I can predict what you will do based on the rules that are in place, based on the offer, based on the system. This is the prediction that we don't seem to analyze in the schools of governance or portals of governance that we must. Without that, we can never have any good policy. And of course, I mentioned this, another myth, Indians are different. No, they are not different. I know that. Let's not even try to do that. China. China was performing very badly. We had this Mao character who was busy killing his own people and making them do things like total equality, etc., communism, etc. That doesn't work. And he got corruption, etc. as well. Today, China is completely liberalized on the economic side. Not today, but did it in 1979 onwards. And it had a massive growth rate. But then they realized this corruption, massive corruption. They didn't reform their governance. Today they are reforming governance. And although we can't see much of it, but in the case of schools, it's very self-evident. And I was reading an article which basically says that, how do they make the schools perform? I'll just give you the results here. You can see, and then I'll go back to the point. I'll just actually cut off on this. This is the results of the PISA. You all know PISA. Whatever it's called, the International Assessment of Children or something. So I forget the words. But it's the international benchmark for performance of children, and India would refuse to do it. India refused to do it till recently when 2 state governments in Karnataka and Himachal Pradesh said, okay, I'm willing to do it. Fine. What is the result? Guess who's at the top?
China.
Shanghai, China. Shanghai, China is at the top of the world in performance. Their children are on that side. They are performing so much better than the median. They are performing at level 1 or 2 years ahead of what they should be. Where are Indians at the bottom? Kyrgyzstan hai. We are just better than, Tamil Nadu is better than Kyrgyzstan. It's a good thing. And Himachal Pradesh is a little better worse. So we have, if you take the performance of all the states combined, UP, Bihar, etc., you'll find them all going to the bottom. So they are actually so far behind that an average person of half the children in class 5 in India cannot read a class 2 textbook. Okay, when we have this kind of performance, then what do? Let's go back to China. So what happens? I was Secretary of Education of Assam, so I know this. I was running this 200,000 school teachers. Total chaos. If you think of what I'm doing firefighting. Corruption, corruption, corruption. This scandal, that scandal. Minister taking money and hiring teachers. Director taking money. And Ashok Sakia and I were my commissioner, I am the secretary, he became the Prime Minister's office vice advisor, and very, very powerful in that sense. So we were working together to fight fires created by this great system. Everybody is taking money and doing this, and nobody attending school. Nobody goes to school, but they are busy taking money and doing all sorts of things. That is called Indian system. So naturally the performance is what we get. China, what it does, China says this is the benchmark. You are never made permanent in China as a teacher. Never, no permanent. This is you start at a junior scale, you perform, you go up, but you have to meet the benchmark. 2 years you are given a chance to beat the benchmark. You perform, you get a promotion. If you fail, you have to go. Khatam, baat khatam. No more discussion. You are not fit to be a teacher. Why the hell are you here? Go and do something else. You may be good at that. A good artist. Who knows what is in your talent? We are not stopping you. But please, you can't do teaching. That is a fundamental difference between us and China. China has adopted even governance reforms. And therefore, when you go to Shanghai, I haven't been, but I've seen pictures. And I've seen the reforms that are taking place. And I've heard stories of Indians who have gone there. It is now performing even on the governance front better than India. So China has overtaken India in great leaps and bounds. So why can't we do it? We should do it. That's the point. What exactly is a fundamental theory? I'll give you this theory. This is very important to understand because I'm trying to simplify the whole economics literature. When you go to a company, they always have this model, right? A base salary and a commission. This actually is a fundamental agency theory model of basically the participation constraint and incentive constraint. Essentially, a company always, the board of a company does not sit every day and does not manage the company. They hire the job to a manager. They hire a manager or CEO. That CEO, they give contracts. The contracts are that you perform, the company increases profit, you get to keep a portion. If it fails, you're gone. Something like that. Simplified. And the base salary is often kept very low at the top level. At the junior level, your base salary is very high. And that's what Chanakya says. The beauty of the thing is, this is what Chanakya has said. Chanakya says junior public servants, they should be given a permanency. Junior people, under secretary and below, they let them be permanent. Above that, you start increasing the performance accountability and so on. That's what Chanakya said. So let us also do that. Because all the companies do that, and all over the world, they do that. And I'll come to Australia in a minute. So I basically mentioned this issue of two stages. So when we talk of principal agent problem, that's very simple. Because the company's board has only one problem, how to make money. Here, they can hire a CEO and get the job done. Only one agent. But here there are two agents. Citizens are the most complex. So I'm a citizen, I want to get my road better. First of all, I have to control my politician. And politician has to control the bureaucrat. Now, neither can I control the politician under the current system. Neither can politician control the bureaucrat. So many politicians, if you talk to them, they'll say, these IAS officers, they will not let me do anything. Which is true. IAS officers say, politician will not let me do something. So who's right? Both are right. The system, and the citizen says, kuch bhi nahi hota, nothing happens. So essentially we have a much more complex, if you do the economic calculation of this thing, it is a much more complex problem. That is what we need to, we have a black box, we have to control the politician. So we had one agent, now he's just 6. Now we have one fellow hitting there, another fellow hitting there. So it's gone beyond the stadium, it's gone. So what does the politician want? He must understand his incentive. That is where the public choice theory comes in very well, and there's a lot of work in that. I won't go into the detailed impossibility theorem, mean border theorem. I put them all here. Those who understand public choice theory know what I'm talking, but essentially what I'm saying is politician's goal is, first of all, to be understood. He wants to get elected, re-elected. He will therefore use all methods possible to get re-elected. And he will then game the system. He will not bother about the citizen. His goal is different to the citizen's goal. Citizen wants road, he wants to get re-elected. So what is the solution? He says, to get re-elected in Indian system, I need 20% vote. I will pander to this caste. I don't believe in caste, but I will pretend that I am a caste man. Because if I do that, then I'll get this 20% votes. That is called gaming the system. This gaming the system concept is based on game theory. Game theory has a lot of analysis and a lot of thinking about how games take place at all strategic. These are strategic games. We need a solid analysis of strategic gaming done by politicians. We must document and understand that. That's part of the analysis of the public incentive problem. So what we have seen here is that under the current rules I've got in my book, he must always be corrupt. The only one solution for this problem is he must necessarily be corrupt, guaranteed 100%. No exception. Manmohan Singh is also not an exception, because if he tries to change the system, he's gone out. Therefore, he has to live with the system. Yeah? So people say he's honest. I say he is actually working with the system. Therefore, he's dishonest. Now, so what we should do, and now I'm actually running out of time, dramatically running out of time. Sorry, so I will rush. I'll go through all this. Basically, I'm talking about the salary part, base salary part, and participation constraint part, and I'm going to rush through the whole thing. There's a good diagram I can give it because I've got 5 minutes, and I will rush. I've got so many slides. So essentially, we must solve the problem sensibly. So market rates are given for particular skills. In India, what we give is nationalism. We say service karo, sacrifice for the nation. We give 1/3 salary, baki sacrifice. That is all corruption. He'll go and do corruption. Be sure, guaranteed. He'll make it the market rate and more. But don't give him sacrifice. Don't give him accountability. Okay. Now, these are conditions that must be met before you actually achieve results. You cannot kill bacteria till 100 degrees. Pasteur said that milk you can't kill till it's boiled. Similarly, you cannot get honesty in the system till you have met both the participation and incentive constraint. Therefore, you must meet these two first. Once you met them, then you will kill the incentive of corruption. The fellow will not dare to be corrupt. That's what Arthashastra says. Same message. My message is not different. It's common sense. Transparency, no, it cannot eliminate corruption. Don't even try it. You must first meet these conditions, then it will help. People say transparency, RTI, I say forget it. You can have all the RTI. People can fudge, I've given contract to so-and-so because of this. It's a false reason, If you're giving a contract to a big guy who is giving you money, you can always write something nice. Very easy. How easy it is to be corrupt. If the incentives are wrong, you'll be corrupt anyway, regardless. Don't try it. Don't waste time. What about Lokpal? Lokpal, can you do with Lokpal? No. Same thing. Lokpal will not solve any problem. Let's be clear, Lokpal can be part of the punishment package. But Lokpal cannot do anything till the participation and incentive constraint is met. That I think is the key point. In fact, it will increase corruption. Lokpal will increase corruption dramatically. This is my prediction based on common sense analysis of economic theory, which unfortunately India doesn't have the ability to do that. I sit in Australia and wonder, what are these guys doing? They're running around like helter-skelter, fasting. What for? Lokpal, forget it. You must have the system right. So, I'm still at number 2. I will say that in Australia all these things happen. Let me just rush through this. You can read my slides later. It is a starkly different governance system. Everything that I have said happens there. There is a detailed analysis, by the way, of all these things. It is not sitting there by magic. All this is actually happening. There is a strong system of accountability at all levels. The organizational culture is dramatically different. Nobody calls anybody sir. Of course, sir hierarchy, there's no hierarchy. We are not sir. We are citizens of the same country. You and I are equal to the person on the ground, the person on the president. We are all citizens. President is not bigger than me or you. Why? He's just a citizen. He's a first citizen. But he's not a sir. He's a gentleman. We just respect him for what he is. If he's doing good things. Otherwise, he's as good or bad as the person who's sweeping the streets. That equality of person, which is the foundation of all democracy, is missing in India. We have this hierarchy. We have aristocracy. Let's avoid that. So what did I say? Public administrative reforms for India, political incentive reforms. Let's do that. I won't go into details now. Time is running short. We will talk about this in today's conference in detail. Let me tell you that. So don't worry. We'll come back to that in detail. Bureaucratic system reform. Let's do a lot of that. People who say this is not practical, I tell them, and we'll do it today. This is practical. Every country has done it, and we can do it. So China is also doing it. Practicality means involving the transition path. How do you go from this hopeless system to a better system? You need to transition. Let's make a transition path, and we will get it right. And anybody who does a proper analysis will always get the right answer. Let us do the right analysis. Now, in economic policy, again, Chanakya is the guru. Let us not forget he is a great economist. For example, he does not prohibit alcohol. Somebody says, alcohol nahi hona chahiye. No, you can't stop people from, some people will always do it. There should be no prostitution. Some people will always do it. You should not eat meat. Some people will always do it. What can we do? What you can do is regulate it. And he is in favor of trade, particularly imports. He is quite contrary to the mercantilist approach. The mercantilists whom Adam Smith was fighting wanted more exports. This day he wanted more imports. He is so advanced in his thinking. I said, Adam Smith does not come close to Chanakya. That is also, and so when people say liberalization doesn't work, I say that's because you have not understood the governance framework and so on. Let me move on. I need to talk about the regulatory reforms for 2 minutes. I will probably take another 2 minutes to close after this. What we need is optimal regulation. And optimal regulation, the liberalization is not the same as deregulation. Let us remember that. We need the optimality where the social marginal cost equals the social marginal benefit. And it can be assessed, this particular thing can be assessed through the cost-benefit analysis test. What we need here is a system of gatekeeping. Policy must go through a gatekeeping system called regulatory impact statement. It's all over the world except India, of course. There is a cost-benefit test. There is a public disclosure of all the analysis, and there's public consultation. So whatever policy I'm creating is actually over to you to consider, look at, and respond. This is also applicable to all problems. What that does is it allows for the best ideas to come in and any wrong analysis to be challenged. In science, this is called peer review. What we do here in public policy is we consult with everybody. That is a peer review. Let's do that. So we have independent gatekeeping process in Victoria, which and I won't go into details, but we must have an independent gatekeeping process not done by the minister. It must be done by an independent body, which is a gatekeeper. Independent commission, which will be honest in its advice. Ministers, if they do it, if the departments do it, then they always, minister has saying something, let us do it. Let us make sure that we get it done through. No, sorry sir, there will be no questions for the session. This is after lunch. So we will just continue this thing for 5-10 minutes, and then we will have, further closure of the session. 10 questions I mentioned, I'll come to details later. What would happen without a role for government? Identify the problem, that is the base case. So that is the problem in the case when there is no government. Should a government actually be there in that sector at all? First principles test. What can the government do about the problem? Does it reduce people's freedom unnecessarily? You are not the government action. Then gaming. Start by thinking about how people will cheat you. When you do the Rega scheme, all the youth people, all the youth of India sitting there doing nothing because saying government is giving us money. Relax. So did you do the gaming test? There are a lot of people who are getting benefits who are not actually the poor. Did you do that test? No, you did not. Government failure. Will the bureaucrat actually deliver properly and honestly? You did not. When Rajiv Gandhi says 85% is taken by the bureaucracy, why did he not do the test? To make sure the system doesn't deliver. One man taking money, dead. Khatam. Rule khatam. I had how many people arrested when I was a DC, additional DC, DRD, etc. That doesn't seem to solve the problem. You cannot keep arresting people and then the court will release them. You must kill them. Just kill them. Any problem? Are you not very happy with that? You want a honest country, just get rid of few people like that. Government failure test, real experience test, cost benefit test, transition path. These 10 questions are part of what I call the policy framework. We'll distribute it in the afternoon today to all the participants. Details are available. This is almost precisely what we do in Victoria on a regular basis. Victorian Guide to Regulation is a document. It's a legal framework. Why it's required by every department. Ministers cannot cook up policies on their own. There is no authority for ministers to do that in Victoria. You must have a proper detailed analysis. You must disclose it. You must consult the public. There must be independent testing. These are requirements of good policy. We don't have it. Let's do it. Reducing red tape, etc. I won't go into details. It's time running out. Basically, what I'm saying is this workshop or conference is a time for us to do homework. I'm expecting significant change. The Margaret Thatcher moment has arrived. India is ready for change. India wants change. India is sick of it. And the solutions are very simple. Governance reform, which is now embedded into all parts of the world, including China. How do you like it if China gets better and richer and more powerful? Do you like it? Is that better? Do you want India to be a slave of China? Is that a good idea? I don't think so. Let us therefore become as powerful or much more powerful than China or etc. Even that competition is important. That at least motivates people. 100 people have said they'll come and we got 50 or 40. This is the apathy in India. Nothing is going to happen. This fellow comes from Australia. He has no idea what he's talking. I'm Indian now. We are Indians. He doesn't understand us. Of course, I don't understand that people don't come. That's a new lesson. But the fact that Indians are the same all over the world is something I do understand. Okay. So this conference will specify all the steps that we will take if a new government comes into power. What are the steps in each of these areas? Let us create a transitional path. Justice Tiwatia I met him in the past. He has given me this advice: please create transitional path. This is the conference that will create transitional path. Step 1, step 2, step 3. We will discuss. And that's, I think, time enough for me. And I'll just mention the Chanakya School of Governance. I think Chanakya must be brought to the notice of the world as the greatest economist ever in terms of the starting theories. And we have not yet discovered him. We are still trying to discover. Balbir Sihag is doing absolutely path-breaking work. Let us call Chanakya School of Government, let us make it the world's best. GFC School of Kennedy will become the second best or third best. Let us make this the world's best institute of governance in India. And that's one of my ambitions for this country. We form a federation, and let us therefore come together. In my view, I'm trying to request people, because the question was raised in the tea time: how will you do this? Everybody knows this. First of all, everybody doesn't know this. Let's be clear. Second, how do you do this? I'm actually doing it for the last so many years, so I know how to do this also. Basically, I don't know. You guys know it. You have to actually find the answer. This is the federation for you. So I create a federation. Now you join it. I'm going to Australia. Goodbye. Now you do it. Here's your federation. Now you're giving a platform. What do you need me for? You don't need me for. I'll go and do a painting. I want to do some painting. Okay. So you start doing the work. And now I request Justice Tivatia first, and then Chaturvedi ji to provide us their thoughts.